The history of crochet. Crochet was known to specify the status symbol of an individual from the early account. This accommodating refinement was practiced by the royalties who were capable to afford buying extravagant lace work goods, and set up the value of crochet commodities to devalue. Numerous have alleged that knitting and crocheting was developed by means of the old practices of persons living in countries like China, Middle Eastern countries, and in South America. Many individuals find credible that crochet may have been practiced by early cultures to flex the muscles of the forefinger, rather than a fashion hook. This belief was accepted by uncountable craft historians, because of the absence of artifact crochet goods, as evidence of its established practices. Crochet versus lace. In the early 1800s, numberless European communities have used crochet goods in place of the immensely expensive lace-made materials. Crocheting just requires fewer materials, and it is also extensively accepted by contrasting social classes. From these periods, crochet was done mainly on thread. The most common universally made products from crochet were filet crochet made in rows, either open or close mesh, to construct a certain pattern, while in the 1900s, the huge production of steel hooks has introduced numerous products which are made from thread. In today's stretch, crocheting and knitting is the enjoyment of numberless individuals. It has recently evolved the attentiveness of many persons that made it so popular with the high quality of yarns and threads used. The delight of making a crochet article is working it with different yarn textures and colors. 8 basic tips for crochet beginners. As a novice, a person should understand the procedure of making a pattern row and a single stitch crocheting. Here are several fundamental steps that will help a person find out how to make a crochet product. 1. Foremost, the person may need the use of crochet mechanism like a size G crochet hook, small scissors, worsted weight yarn with any colors, and a big-eyed yarn needle. 2. He may begin by holding the crochet hook in his right hand if he is right-handed. Then he may produce a slip knot on the hook. 3. He may glide the hooked yarn to the slip knot of the hook. This procedure will produce a continuous stitch or a chained-like stitches. He will then continue to bringing back the yarn on top of the hook, making the thread go into the hook, and grabbing the slip knot into the hook. 4. He can pass by on the first chain stitch, permitting the knot to be properly hooked on the knot of the thread. This will allow the thread to be properly in place, so that it will not loosen. A much tighter knot would be better to form a chain stitch. 5. He may insert the hook to the hole on the next chain stitch, and then glide the yarn passing through the center of the second chain stitch, going to the upper part of the hook. He may have now created 2 loops on the hook of the threads. 6. He may fetch the yarn back on the hook from back to front, and slide the knot in the center of the loops that he had created on the hook. 7. From the second loop, form another 1 chain stitch to construct a counterclockwise loop. This allows the hook to remain in the chain stitches. He may set in motion again in creating the accompanying rows, creating the exact loops on the previous rows. 8. He may form a single crochet stitch in the first loop, tighten going to the following loops of the previous rows. He should be precisely certain to produce the hook on the last stitch to retain the stitches on their places, completing the crochet item. To conclude the work, he may cut the surplus yarn on the skin. He should not forget to keep at minimum 6 inches of the thread on the last chain stitch. This will allow him to slip the hook up to the upper part of the loops and bringing the thread into the last loops of the hook. As a greenhorn, he may discover it tough to do, especially on more detailed crochet products. He may begin doing these fundamental steps to help him get used to the techniques.